I think it's interesting that, you know, on one hand we're upset with all of this information being sort of like disseminated about us by the palace or not by the palace, and yet on the other hand we want, you know, all this sort of like privacy, and I just don't understand why does he not want to do this privately, any of it?
Well, I think this is the $64,000 question out of all of this. By doing the Netflix chat, I mean, putting the money to one side, and clearly they've got to do this as part of this mega bucks deal, what does he hope to achieve by it? He could talk about what's happened to him and how unhappy he was, but there was a lot of kind of below-the-belt jabs at the royal family. I was effectively the only man that ever married for love rather than, you know, a woman fitting the mould, you know,
the only one who's existed outside the bubble.
Yeah, there were a lot of quite low blows, I think, that actually Harry didn't need to say. You know, stick to the facts, and then maybe you will find a way of, if you feel this is the only way that you can express your opinion in full to the family, maybe this is the channel that he feels most comfortable with. But then those jabs, I think, make it even more difficult for them to respond in kind to him. So,
well, and speaking of response, there was a quote in the Sunday Times from a friend of the Duke of Sussex that Harry is on a quote-unquote a true quest to force the family to change. So for all the hopes the royals might have that this will eventually die down, that doesn't feel like that's the case.
He may say that, or you know, his friends may say that, but it's up to the family as to whether they want to engage with that. And if they don't, and they refuse to publicly comment, then where is he left? You know, it's this kind of constant cycle of harking back to the past instead of just moving forward with optimism for the future, which is, I think, what everybody wants him to do. And we've still got the book coming, Spare, 10th of January. And there are reports suggesting that the book will be far more explosive than the Netflix documentary. Well, Netflix will be pleased about that, won't they? But, I mean, if that's true, you know, do you have any idea what that might be and whether or not that could be the thing that breaks the King's silence on all of this? Well, we fully expect it, because obviously Harry himself has said he's writing this book not as the prince he was born, but the man he's become. Make of that what you will, but it seems to suggest that he will be harking a lot on his childhood experiences, and undoubtedly they weren't good. He clearly had, you know, a very, especially after his mother died, a very emotionally unstable childhood that has an effect on him today. But of course, in talking about this, there are going to be implicit criticisms or explicit criticisms, as I think probably the guess is, of his father and the way he handled things. And again, you know, the King has made a very conscious decision that this is his son, he loves him, he's not going to respond, the door is always there and it's open for him. But you've got to ask yourself how much one man can take. I think it would take a lot for the palace to comment on. They are definitely keeping their powder dry. They want to see what Harry has got to say. But again, it goes back to this point, someone I discussed it with the other week, is they just don't see how it helps being drawn into a constant tit-for-tat with Harry over this.
Thanks for watching. On Thursdays, don't forget to tune into Palace Confidential, your weekly look at all things royal.